Welcome to my first round mock draft. Please play along, post who your team is taking in this year's draft. Let me know what I got right and what I got wrong. Now, with the first pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Will Anderson, edge rusher out of Alabama. No trades in this mock draft, but I fully expect come draft day, Chicago will not hold this pick. Now, even before the legal issues with Jalen Carter came up, Anderson was my pick. Why? Economics. It's much cheaper to get a stud defensive tackle in free agency than a stud pass rusher. Anderson surprised me being bigger than I thought at the combine. He can play defensive end or outside linebacker, but he's better suited as an outside linebacker in the 3-4 type of defense that the Chicago Bears run. In my opinion, he will get double digits in sacks year one. Houston Texans at number 2 select C.J. Stroud. Yes, another curveball. This is my quarterback number 1, and I'm sticking to my board over popular opinion. Every time I see C.J. Stroud, he is calm, cool, and collected. Then go put on the film against Georgia. He's the best player on the field. Arizona Cardinals at pick number 3 select Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech. Now, I believe Arizona will try and trade down, but if they're stuck at 3, this will be the pick. New head coach Jonathan Gannon runs more of a 4-3 type of defense, where last year Arizona ran a 3-4. I expect more even fronts, and Wilson is athletic enough to play outside linebacker, so you do have some scheme flexibility. Personally, I expect Wilson to start day 1 in this new defense. Pick number 4, the Indianapolis Colts select Bryce Young, quarterback out of Alabama. In my opinion, the Colts will trade up for the first pick in the draft and take their quarterback at number 1. Here, they get their guy at number 4. Pick number 5, the Seattle Seahawks select Jalen Carter out of Georgia. Thanks to the Russell Wilson trade, Seattle will get picks 5 and 38 in addition to picks 20 and 53. Their defense was terrible against the run last year, giving up the 3rd most rushing yards in the NFL. With the extra draft capital, you can take a chance here. If Carter is gone, you can go in another direction or maybe even trade down. However, if Jalen Carter is available at pick number 5, I fully expect the Seattle Seahawks to fill their biggest need with what most people consider the best prospect in the draft. I warned Lions fans I was throwing a curveball here. Detroit at number 6 takes Joey Porter Jr., the cornerback out of Penn State. The Lions like his size and physicality. He is the definition of a Dan Campbell player. Is this high for Joey Porter? Absolutely. In my opinion, Detroit will try and trade down, but if they stick at 6, they get my number 1 corner in the draft and a day 1 starter in the secondary. The Raiders at 7 select Will Levis, a quarterback out of Kentucky. Out of all the quarterbacks in the draft, I think Levis is best suited to start day 1. Just a hunch, I got a feeling this is the Raiders quarterback number 1, so they may even trade up for Levis. Here, they get their guy at 7. The Atlanta Falcons take Keion White out of Georgia Tech. New defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen's coming from the Saints, and Keion White is very similar to Cam Jordan and can play multiple positions along the front 7. I'm expecting more 4-3 looks, and Keion White will be a day 1 starter at defensive end. The Carolina Panthers at 9 select Anthony Richardson, quarterback out of Florida. I fully expect Carolina to take a quarterback in the first round. They could trade up. Who knew head coach Frank Reich wants a quarterback? It's hard to say, but Richardson does have more upside than any other quarterback coming out that I can remember for a long time. He is not day 1 ready, but the upside is immense. The Philadelphia Eagles at 10 select Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern. Here, Philly drafts their future right tackle, who will someday replace Lane Johnson. Now, he could also play guard as well. Now, Philly could trade down, but in the mock draft without trades, I got Philly taking my number 1 offensive lineman here at 10. The Tennessee Titans select Paris Johnson Jr. out of Ohio State. Now, Tennessee could go in a variety of different directions, but in my opinion, they take Johnson and he starts day 1 at left tackle. The Houston Texans at 12 take Quentin Johnston out of TCU. He is my wide receiver number 1. If you got a young quarterback, give him a big wide receiver to throw to. I know you have Nico Collins, but in 2 years he's had 70 receptions and only 3 touchdowns. That isn't good enough. Johnson might beat both of those numbers in his rookie season. The New York Jets at 13 select Brian Brees, a defensive tackle out of Clemson. In this defense, Brees will line up next to Quentin Williams and see a lot of one-on-one opportunities. This is a risky pick. Brees is talented, but 13 might be a little high here. The upside could be worth it. The Jets could also go offensive line, but Brees' potential with the defensive-minded head coach is why I have Brees' selection here. The New England Patriots select Cody Mock, the offensive lineman out of North Dakota State University. Now, I believe Mock will play right tackle here at New England, but the versatility he provides is why New England takes him at 14. In my opinion, New England's a prime candidate to want to trade down, just like they did in last year's first round with Kansas City. But if stuck at 14, I think the versatile Mock will be the selection. The Green Bay Packers select Michael Mayer, tight end out of Notre Dame. This is my tight end number 1, but whether you have Mayer or Kincaid as your tight end number 1, it doesn't matter. Green Bay, in my opinion, wants a tight end who can block, and Kincaid is not near the blocker that Mayer is. The quarterback situation will not affect this draft pick, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, or someone else. Whoever the quarterback is really going to love my tight end number 1, Mayer, who will go to Green Bay at 15. The Washington Commanders at 16 take Christian Gonzalez, corner out of Oregon. Now, I like Washington to take a corner here. Whoever they have as their highest rated corner will be the pick. In my opinion, it's Gonzalez, who at 16 could be a steal. We are halfway through the mock draft. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. Let the YouTube algorithm know that you like football content and mock drafts. Make sure you ring that bell. Get reminded for every time a new video comes out. Now, Pittsburgh at 17. I got taken Devin Witherspoon, cornerback out of Illinois. I could see Pittsburgh going O-line or maybe even wide receiver, but a lot of people have Witherspoon as a cornerback number 1. Just a hunch, he's going to be the highest rated player on the Steelers draft board. The Detroit Lions at 18 select O'Cyrus Torrence, offensive lineman out of Florida. In this draft, Detroit gets a couple of Dan Campbell type players. Lions fans won't like this pick at first, but when he goes to the Pro Bowl as a rookie, they forgive Brad Holmes for reaching and getting a future superstar in Torrance. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 19 select Broderick Jones, tackle out of Georgia. The way this mock draft goes, Jones will end up being the starting left tackle day 1 for the Bucs. If the Bucs like Jones, like I think they do, they could trade up, and New England at 14 is an ideal trade partner. If this trade happens, I could see Jones going to Tampa Bay at 14 and Mock going to New England at 19. The Seattle Seahawks at 20 select Kelly Ringo, cornerback out of Georgia. Why not double dip with Bulldogs here? Seattle plays a lot of nickel, so having multiple big-bodied corners is a must. This is the type of corner that Pete Carroll loves. I also believe that Pete Carroll will like the idea of multiple college national championship winners on his NFL team. The Los Angeles Chargers at 21 select Bijan Robinson, running back out of Texas. 30 years ago, Robinson would be the first pick in the draft, and he might be the most talented player in this year's draft. This is the absolute latest Robinson will go. And the Chargers get an absolute stud. The Baltimore Ravens at 22 select Brian Branch, defensive back out of Alabama. Big surprise, the Ravens taking a Bama player. Branch fits this defense perfectly, and the Ravens get a player who shouldn't be available this late in the draft again. The Minnesota Vikings at 23 select Kalia Cansey, defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh. With Brian Flores taking over as defensive coordinator in Minnesota, I have a tough time figuring out what changes he is going to make. Despite having 2 double-digit sackers on the Vikings last year, they had only 38 sacks total. With Cansey, you have an interior presence they severely lacked last season. The Jacksonville Jaguars at 24 select Cam Smith, Corner out of South Carolina. I like Jacksonville to take a corner here, whether it's Smith or not depends on the Jaguars' big board. Smith's length and athleticism are big pluses. You could also go Emmanuel Forbes or Deonte Banks, but I like Smith to be the pick at 24 for Jacksonville. The New York Giants at 25 select Jordan Addison, wide receiver out of USC. A lot of people have Addison as wide receiver number 1. The Giants might even consider trading up if Addison drops like in this mock draft. But here they get a steal at 25. The Dallas Cowboys at 26 select Dalton Kincaid, tight end out of Utah. Kincaid replaces Dalton Schultz and could be a potential upgrade. Dallas is always an interesting team come draft time, and if they like Kincaid, don't be surprised if Dallas attempts a trade up for what most people have as tight end number 1 in this draft. The Buffalo Bills with pick 27 select Antonio Johnson, safety out of Texas A&M. It appears Jordan Poyer will leave via free agency and Johnson can come in and replace him and will start day 1. This is one of my draft crushes, and if Buffalo feels the same way, don't be surprised if Buffalo attempts to trade up for the Aggie safety. The Cincinnati Bengals at 28 select Emmanuel Forbes, cornerback out of Mississippi State. I could see the Bengals going safety if Johnson is available. With Johnson gone, Cincinnati could trade out of round 1 or go corner. With no trades in this mock, the Bengals take Forbes, who has massive upside, and with 6 pick sixes in his college career, he does have lots of playmaking ability for the Bengals. The New Orleans Saints at 29 take Lucas Van Ness, the defensive end out of Iowa. Van Ness is raw but has size and massive potential. He might not be a day 1 starter, but it won't prevent the Saints from taking him here at 29. Now, I do believe Marcus Davenport leaves in free agency. However, if the Saints do re-sign Davenport, I think the Saints will go in another direction. But with the way things are right now, Van Ness will be the pick for the Saints at 29. The Philadelphia Eagles at 30 take Nolan Smith, edge rusher out of Georgia. With the phenomenal combine Smith had, he should not be available this late in the draft. However, the free agency crop and draft has a lot of edge rushers and outside linebackers, so Smith might slide in this year's draft. Philly uses a hybrid 3-4-4-3 defense, so Smith probably won't start day 1, but Philly does like to rotate pass rushers, so don't be surprised if Smith gets a lot of sacks in 2023 despite only being a rotational player. The Super Bowl winning Kansas City Chiefs pick 31st in the draft, and I have the Chiefs selecting Jackson Smith-Njigba, wide receiver out of Ohio State. As I am making this video, it appears the Chiefs will release Frank Clark, and the Chiefs could take defensive end Myles Murphy. But I like JSN here. With the big contracts Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams received in free agency last year, wide receiver is a position that you will have to pay for. Getting the best wide receiver in the draft at 31 could be an absolute steal for the Kansas City Chiefs. If you're anxious to see who goes in rounds 2 and 3 in the NFL draft, check out these 2 mock drafts. And also, I will have a new mock draft released next week. I hope to see you then.